Good day, everybody. Thank you for joining me on the channel. In today's content, we will be studying XLM, which is currently in the middle of a bull flag breakout with targets towards $1.80. Today, we're going to be breaking down this structure and what could be coming next. Nothing that I say is financial advice. Let's dive into the content. So coming over to XLM here, I've got a few different sort of patterns and necklines on the charts here. Let's go back to this cup and handle, for example, and this was a formation from July 2019 all the way until 2020 when XLM currently put in this all-time high in May 2021. From the top out, then XLM did have this falling wedge structure, which led it back down to these lows of January 2023 at 0.07. At this point, this is where we eventually started getting the breakout, and we created this double bottom neckline where we retraced to this higher low. So you can see we had this double bottom formation, and this was a multi-year accumulation zone. And come towards November of 2024, this is where the break of that resistance occurred, and we got this whopping candle that took XLM up to its previous candle close highs from May 2021 at 53 cents. Now, since this higher low formation and this breakout, this is where the flag pole was created in this bull flag formation in order to get these targets towards $1.80. So how we do this is we get the flagpole from the breakout going up to the level of resistance, and then once you get this formation where you're coming back in this falling channel, this essentially is where the flag formation was created. So since November of 2024 all the way until July, where we actually got the breakout of resistance, this was the flag formation. So I do believe that this trajectory is currently underway, and the breakout target does sit towards $1.80. Now, along this journey, I think there's going to be sort of bumps and hiccups. Of course, it's not going to be straightforward. Historically, heading into September, it could be a bit rocky for altcoins, for Bitcoin, and the overall market. So I think it's relatively safe to consider that we could have some chops, some sideways action. And we're going to zoom in a little bit in a second and look at some support targets moving forward to keep this pattern valid. But here is the structure. You've got the flagpole, the flag formation since the 50 sort of 5-6 cents highs of November 2024, correcting all the way to July for the flag, and then essentially getting this flag breakout. Now, I do think, as you can see here in this sort of structure, I've got this red sort of bars pattern behind the breakout target line here. I do think that over the next sort of couple of months, we may sort of linger underneath this resistance, i.e. at 53 cents, and we could just sort of coil up between this level of resistance and a key level of support. And it may get a little bit frustrating heading in towards sort of October, November, but this is where I expect that euphoria to really start kicking in and pushing XLM to these targets in Q4 and potentially leading into Q1 2026. Now, there are some other sort of signals or signs that are pointing towards this $1.80 move. For example, if we get a Fibonacci on from the low of August 2024, retracing back to the all-time high, the $1.80 target sits right in between the 1272 and the 1414 fib extension. So if I slide this over to the right a little bit, you'll be able to see here that you have the 1414, which is currently at around $2. Let me just remove the label. Yeah, so the 1414 at around $2 and the 1272 is at $1.50. So you can see the $1.80 bull flag target sits between these sort of extensions. Now, potential sort of euphoric targets, and if we do get really explosive and euphoric here for XLM over the next sort of 6 to 9 months, I think that we could see candles that have replicated from back in November 2024. I think it's wise to note that we got this massive breakout at a time that didn't involve being in something like an alt season where we do see those major euphoric targets. And this is why I think that we haven't actually had the top out on XLM and these other projects, XRP, and that Bitcoin is still looking to put in higher highs in Q4. And then obviously for money flow to occur, rotate into other altcoins and large caps. And this is why I think that when that rotation does occur, this is where moves like this bull flag target could come into fruition. You know, that liquidity, that flow rotates into the large caps from Bitcoin, it trickles down, and this is where getting into Q4, it gets really exciting. And I think these are the potentials of pushing towards for euphoria. So at minimum, conservative, $1.50, $2.11 is probably a nice, I would say an average medium that I'd be happy with. And 1618 at $3.40 would be max euphoria. Now, I think that Stellar has been developing exceptionally well and progressing kind of under the cloak and under the radar. You know, it stays away from all the hassle and all of the chaos. And I think that they're silently building, and this is a sleeping giant, okay? So again, technical targets, $1.50 up to $3.40. It's a very broad range, but I've given you conservative, a sort of average, and a euphoric target. And the $1.80 sits between the conservative and the sort of medium average. I like the 1414. So that's kind of the breakout. Now, if we look into the daily time frame very quickly, I do think there is a similar sort of bull flag structure. So I'm going to remove these drawings very quickly and just look a little bit, zoom in a little bit more to this price action, because what we have right here is a similar structure to what we're seeing on the monthly time frame, except we've got this on the daily. So right now, potentially, we could have a similar situation where we're forming this bull pennant. Okay, and this resistance line here is the current major bull flag that we're breaking out from. Okay, so from this major move we had this correction, a level of resistance, and now we've broken that level of resistance and are correcting again in some sort of pennant, it looks like here, albeit considered this ascending support can hold. So this is where we got the breakout of resistance. We had this impulsive wave. Okay, it failed to take out these highs, and now we've had this correction where we're forming this potential pennant. So if we are to replicate a similar move to what I was just covering in that bull flag target for the monthly time frame, but this is on the daily, if we do get the sort of squeeze heading into sort of early September, potentially we could see a push up here towards 98 cents, towards $1. And this again would invalidate my theory of actually pulling back in September for a lot of altcoins and actually doing the opposite and seeing them continue and break out here. However, if this fails and we do lose this ascending support and this breakout target isn't the target to look for, simply for XLM on this retrace, going from this local high back down to this local low. I've got my 1 and 0 off, so I'll get those on, and including the 050 and 0618. On this retracement, I think that if SHX loses 37 cents, which is the 0382, the local low of early August, if it does start to lose this level of support, then I would simply look for around 33 to 30 cents. And this could be where we sort of get a top out here, a local bottom where we've had an A, a B, and then potentially a C wave correction back down to a key level of support before then actually pushing on and kind of reaching towards this local high of 63 cents from back in November. So it does look like we have the potential to have already completed this correction. As I said, we have this ascending level of support, and it could be a potential sort of pennant that's forming, but we have to hold 37 cents for it to be a bullish pennant and push towards that $1 target that I had on not so long ago. And if that isn't the case, and it does get a bit choppy and a bit rocky heading into sort of early September, mid-September, then this is where we could see that pullback to 33 to 30 cents before pushing on and continuing higher. But nonetheless, I think the macro structure just looks absolutely beautiful here for XLM, and we really shouldn't sleep on these sort of macro targets. Yes, it has had a massive impulsive wake-up call, but after accumulating for such a long period, i.e. we accumulated for around 800 days, this is what happens when you have great tech and you have a great project. You know, it's done its neck around the woods. It's been about for a long time. It's stable. It's stable in a sense of its existence and its authority in the market, so to speak. It has a lot of big players on its resume, so I don't think it's going anywhere. I think that this is major bullish structure. The bull flag formation points to $1.80. On the lower time frames, we have another bull flag with a potential target to $1, and I think as long as 30 cents holds, this sort of structure, this bullish bull flag breakout target to $1.80 remains intact. I hope you've enjoyed the content from Chart Nerd TA. Take care. Peace out.